Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of our house show here with Phoenix Business Radio X. I get the pleasure of being your guest host today. My name is Kendra Maples. You are usually seeing me having a different conversation, and now I get to host today this conversation with our house show with two lovely ladies, one of which I know a little bit more, and the other one we're going to get to know a little bit better. I am actually nerdily excited. I don't know if that's a real word, but we're going with it for this conversation because it's about sustainability. And my background is actually in animal behavior and conservation. So I worked in the zoo industry for a long time. And so when it comes to the sustainability side of things, this is at my core. So I geek out about this a lot. And Josie and I have had the conversations and the opportunity to geek out a little bit. And now we get to bring in Emily. So today, our two amazing guests that we have Josie Kohlan, the Director of Sustainability for Goodman's. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And with her, we have Emily Kingman, the Sustainability Coordinator for Architectural Resource Team.
Yes. Hello.
Hello. I am, like I said, so excited to have the two of you here today. Josie, I know you a little bit already. So as far as starting introductions, Emily, I want to start with you. Obviously, we get your bio. We know a little bit about you guys, but it's one thing if I read it. It's very, very different if we just hear it from you.
Sure.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about you, Emily, how you kind of got to where you are and the company.
Yeah. So I actually have a master's degree in construction management. So when I started that program, though, it was very oddly clear that construction and building our infrastructure is not so great for the future the way we're currently doing it. But it was also really clear that there's so many better ways to do it to actually progress and be able to live the way we want, but do it differently. So that got me into the sustainability side of construction. And then with graduation, I was connected with Architectural Resource Team because they're working on the first Living Building Challenge in the region. And that is exactly what attracted me to them. So now I've been with them for, I want to say 2 years, maybe a little more, doing mostly documentation, sustainable research, and all the coordination just to get the building done and then implement it into other projects too.
Awesome. And tell us what the first certified living building, like what is this? What does this mean? Why was that exciting for you?
So I think generally most people know what LEED is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that and then amplify it, like feels like what could be tenfold.
Okay.
Then you're looking at the Living Building Challenge. It's also like LEED is really great and it has you design for a better purpose, but it never tracks how the building actually works. And then during my research in grad school, the longer a building goes on living, usually the worse it actually works. So like the window seals start to degrade, therefore air conditioning gets out. And like as simple as that sounds, that's the basic concept. So this it's about performance. So it's about the three basics, or the three big ones, are materials, energy, and water. So with the water, it's net zero water, net positive energy, non-toxic materials. And those are the three that are less around design and more about performance. And it has to be, you build the building with the systems, you start living in the building, and then you get the certification after 12 consecutive months of proven work. So you don't get the certification unless it's actually net zero water, actually net positive energy for a consecutive year, which
So
makes it special. Yeah.
So it might start out, and for those that don't know what LEED certification is, that's essentially when it's built, right? You get the
Yes.
certification for,
Yeah.
cool, you did a good job being green.
Yeah. So like it's great because it like has you separate waste during construction, and it has you do better HVAC systems, more efficient systems, and better windows, and like nicer designs that are more biophilic. So it gets people connected to nature, which then sort of makes people happier in the space in general. Yeah.
Okay.
But nothing is rechecked over the years, really. You can voluntarily go in if you want and get recertified, but it's not necessary. And therefore, there are some buildings that are certified 15 years ago that do not work as well as they used to, and that's just normal. But this is a certification that makes sure that that doesn't happen anymore.
That's fascinating. And this is the first one
in
Arizona. Okay.
And then the Sonoran Desert in general. So it goes into California, like the smaller parts of Nevada and California and northern Mexico. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the first one in that region.
Yes.
Ooh. So are there other ones that you know of, like East Coast or anyone else that's doing this where you can kind of see how it's already been done?
Yes.
Okay.
It's hard because there's none in this region. So for us, obviously, water is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
And the heat and the temperature.
Yes. But we have plenty of sun. Where I know one in northern Minnesota, water is not really an issue, but their energy was because not so much sun all the time. And then I know the new, I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe it is the new addition to the Santa Barbara City Hall.
I think there are ones there's one in California.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's Santa Barbara City Hall is an LBC building.
Cool.
And I'm going to say LBC for short because it means
good.
Living Building Challenge.
I like this. I like this.
Yeah. The very first one was the Bullitt Center, though. It's in Seattle. The whole company is based out of Seattle. But it's moving. There's a few in Canada, I think one or two in Australia. It is moving international, and it's a really cool program. It's just it's really hard, but it's a really great way to think about building for the future.
Yeah. And I love that was a piece that drew you to this space.
Yeah.
We'll keep going into that.
Yes.
I do want to jump over
to
Josie.
I can talk about LBC all day, though.
Right?
That's how Emily and I really kind of started our friendship. So
I love it. And you guys can talk your
Okay.
sustainability lingo. I'll chime in and ask questions when everyone else
down.
when everyone else might not know what the things mean.
Sounds good.
Josie, I want to jump over to you. I've worked and we've known Goodman's for quite a while, an amazing company. So tell me about your role with Goodman's because you were the first one in this role. And tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm Josie. I've worked at Goodman's for over 5 years now. It's my first job in the industry, first big girl job actually, and I really love the company to a core. We're here to change our community, and I feel like I really I get to be a really big part of doing that now with my new role, relatively new role. I've been in it a year and a half now, a little bit more. And director of sustainability, and it's our first position. I want to say of that kind, but not really, because we have really cool kind of non-traditional positions. Like we have a VP of people, and we had like a culture and community outreach person as well. But I have a background in design and really was just passionate about sustainability. I think since design school, like that was the biggest thing that got me excited, was speccing sustainable products and researching those manufacturers, and in the end just creating a project that I felt really good about, that has a purpose beyond just looking great, because I do really value aesthetics and beauty. I think that's like kind of anyone in the design community can relate to that, but a higher purpose is really important to me, especially just where we're at in the world and the age I am at, thinking forward to having children and what my life or their life might look like in the future. is very, very important to me. So it's nice to be supported by Goodman's who really cares about that as well. Like we care about our community, we care about the planet. It kind of goes hand in hand. So it's been really fun to kind of innovate in this new space. And it's exciting because we have a really holistic kind of approach of looking at things, and it's not a really drilled down, nailed down role. So I get to kind of have my hands in a lot of pots, which is kind of exciting because, like Emily was touching on, there's so many facets of sustainability, and especially being in this region, like the heat, water, transportation, all of that. Yeah, definitely are factors, and I get to kind of, play around with all of them.
I absolutely love this. And I love that this is a new role. Goodman's is very progressive in the space of taking care of people and community and sustainability. They always have been, right?
Definitely.
Now having you as, okay, this is the human in that role. Let's make this happen. I also really admire and love that both of you kind of leaned into the fact that this is, for lack of better terms, the first like big girl companies, right? I think that's really important in this space of sustainability. It's new visions, it's new perspectives, where I feel like when I was in that space too, sometimes it's hard to change mindset of somebody who's older and they've been in that space for a long time. I've been super proud of my mom, man. She's recycling everything now. And I'm like, okay, well,
wait,
now
not everything.
Now you're
That's
going,
a problem.
Yeah, like you're going a little too far, mom. Like you're on the right track, and also we can't.
That's called wish cycling.
Yes, she's trying.
I love it.
But it's so cool to have you guys in these spaces and in these roles to bring the new vision and bring that sustainability view for, like you said, Josie, for your kids and for the future of how it can change. And Josie, in your role already, you've already started to lead Goodman's to set a net zero target.
Yeah. So that's really, really exciting. That's pretty new. It's officially official, and I'm saying it here, so it's official. But yeah, we benchmarked our carbon footprint, and we're going to reduce it by 50% by 2030, and then all the way by 2050, and that's based on the Paris Agreement and science-based targets. So it's really cool to kind of be a company of our size in that space. If you look on the science-based target database, it's lots of like Fortune 500 companies. It's big corporations. So yeah, I think that really aligns with a lot of other stuff we're doing, where it's pretty unusual at our scale of being a small to medium-sized company. We're local. We have a branch in Tucson and Albuquerque as well, but just a regional kind of company of this size. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah. I love that too, because you're bringing it like into the community more, and you're letting the smaller businesses realize like it's not this global thing that just the large companies need to do.
Totally.
So like literally anybody can do it, and probably everybody should do it. but it's nice that you're like a local example, that you don't have to be this large corporation in order to put this commitment forward.
Totally. And that is same with you and ART. Like the work you guys are doing to be a beacon kind of on this local scale is super awesome.
It's fun.
Yes. So tell me more about this, the local side of things, like the local context. Josie, we know a little bit of what Goodman's is starting to do, right? Being a local company in this area. And so, Emily, tell me more about what does this local connection and communication to people look like?
So this is like a weird loaded question of sorts for us, mostly because ART, which Architectural Resource Team, ART.
Yeah. We have lots of,
we love the acronyms.
We have acronyms today.
Yeah. The majority of their work is in low income housing or healthcare. So the healthcare it goes more nationally than the housing, but it mostly focuses on mental health and like drug rehab. So it's just helping the community that sometimes people tend to forget about, really. And the other side of it is low income housing. So we work with basically developers, and we get grants and the cities and communities here to try to get just more affordable housing in the valley. And then we design and build those. So that's what ART kind of has always done for the community in a business sense. And then with pulling the sustainability into it, just like almost finishes that circle to a degree.
What about you guys as Just a Label too? So
yeah.
I think that's really notable.
I've been working on that all day.
Perfect.
Tell us more then.
So it's part of ILFI, is the International Living Future.
I'm writing
Sorry, everyone.
You're fine. I know.
FI.
Yeah.
ILFI?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just adding
International
it to my-
Living Future Institute. They are the parent company to Living Building Challenge. So it's think like USGBC to LEAD. So it's like,
What is that
A
one?
bunch of green building nerdy stuff.
We're going to recap all of these acronyms.
There will be a quiz.
Yeah, so the United States Green Building Council is the organization that created LEED of a certification.
Okay.
So ILFI is the organization that created LBC.
Okay.
So they also created one of the things that goes into the Living Building Challenge is that it's called the Just label. So it's essentially a self-evaluation of an organization that you have to go into these different categories and grade yourself.
Yeah, like you have to look at your stuff like hard, like bias and like who's holding what roles within your company.
Yeah, and it's diversity and gender roles and pay equity.
Yeah.
And health and fitness. So physical fitness, mental health, and well-being. It goes into how much you are donating or helping the community around you. I think those are the biggest.
It's really cool. It's like a transparency label. It's like a nutritional information stamp for a company.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what the ILFI, the International Living Future Institute, has another label like that called Declare, which is essentially nutritional transparency for a product.
Yep.
So that's, I hope will be a part of our conversation today too, when we're talking about like materiality and circular economy, which circular economy is a shift from what our economy is right now, which is very linear, where we take materials from the earth, we turn them into a product, we use that product, we throw it away. It's linear. So a circular economy is like recycling or composting are some basic examples.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Declare label and just material transparency in general, which I know was really big for Emily as she was going through the LBC certification, because it restricts certain materials, and most of the time all of the time on construction materials, you don't know what's actually in a sheet of drywall. Well, we kind of do. It's formaldehyde. For those who don't know.
Not anymore. But we can get into that. That's like my day to day. Like materials are my bread and butter, so I could talk for days about that. But
do it.
Keep going. Let's keep going. The Declare label and go for it.
So when it comes down to materials, it's like what Josie, you were saying with the Declare label. I like to, like a Declare label is essentially, it's very similar to like a health product. HPD. Yeah. Yep. I only know the acronym.
Oh gosh,
so now I'm like,
health product declaration.
Yes.
Yeah.
The health product declaration, which is also, what's the larger one? Oh my gosh.
Life cycle analysis.
Yeah. And
environmental product declaration.
All of the above. So it's all these different like third-party certifications that manufacturers can go through to essentially stamp that their product is healthy. So like another, for example, like I'm currently pregnant and I'm looking for a lot of stuff that kids need that I'm learning about. And in that realm of the industry, I'm finding that you won't find EPDs or HPDs, so the environmental product declaration or health product declarations, but you will find things like Green Guard Gold, which is a certification for VOCs, the volatile
organic compounds.
Yes. So, which are essentially the things like you unroll a mattress and then it smells funny. That's all the chemicals in the mattress that are now going into the air.
Oh.
Yeah. It's so fun being in this space. You just, it's.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. So if something has a Green Guard Gold stamp on it, and you'll find that in most furniture or kind of foam-based products.
Yeah.
I can't promise you they won't smell funny because it's foam and plastics. It's whatever.
But it's better.
But it's not toxic.
Okay, what's the stamp again?
Green Guard.
Green Guard.
Yeah.
So the off-gassing has been measured pretty much to not have as big of an impact.
Effects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is like it's weirdly fun for me to
It sounds terrifying right now. You guys know all of
it's fun for her. I don't
really
really have as much fun with it.
I think it's because you can see the progress faster. So I don't want every manufacturer to have to pay for a third-party certification, because then you're asking for
sure
to
it's a roadblock.
Essentially, turn away because it's too expensive. But which we don't need to do. But going back to the Declare label, it helps with transparency. So it doesn't cost anything for a company to go to their R&D department and get a list of all the materials and then look at the toxic materials list that is public and say, we can certify that none of this is in here.
Okay.
And it's like proprietary stuff. I never expect people to deluge, because then our businesses would not, the market would not be what it is. So it's okay. But at the same time, you can say, this 50% of our product is proprietary, but I can promise you that it's been tested and none of these thousands of ingredients that are toxic to you are in it.
Okay.
So what's really cool about a Declare label too is that a Declare label, it can be on all different kinds of stuff, but let's say a chair has a Declare label. The kind of change that's sparking across all levels on the supply chain, and then all the way to the consumer and through end of life is really cool, because the manufacturer of that chair had to go upstream to all their suppliers of the arm pads, of the mesh, of the metal base, and request this information. And those people likely had to go even further up. And it's kind of goes back to just simple supply and demand. Like when we're pushing more of these labels in the market, it does demand that the manufacturers of these products start looking at things like that and making changes to healthier materials. And that's it's important from like the VOC perspective and off-gassing and just how humans can healthily sit in a chair in a building in this kind of framework that we've created. But then it goes into end of life as well. So Goodman's does a lot of work with the circular economy. So that's like the last mile of furniture, the last mile of this industry when someone's ready to upgrade all their furniture and they probably have old furniture. So we have a donation program that we've had since 2008. I'm bad at math, so I'm not going to do that.
Long time.
Since 2008. And it was actually started by a Goodman's employee, which is really cool. And we take customers' surplus nonprofit or surplus furniture and we give it to nonprofits for free. So that's a great example of the circular economy. And we've expanded that now that I've been in this role to tearing apart old furniture and recycling all the different pieces. And that's really what got me into materials. Is it's very difficult to find end-of-life solutions for materials that aren't labeled, that is like mixed plastic melted over a steel base, because So recycling is really fun, as we were kind of talking about with the wish cycling. And this is all said with sarcasm, by the way. So in case you're not watching, it's extremely complex, but it makes sense why it needs to be that way. So metal needs to be recycled only with other metal. It doesn't work if you recycle metal and plastic. It's going to make this weird material that no one can do anything with. So having furniture that's designed for disassembly with materials that are non-toxic is really important, so that when we're tearing apart the furniture, the people who are tearing it apart are safe. They're not being exposed to particulate matter that has formaldehyde bits in it or PFAS from the PVC. And then that keeps the recycler safe too. Like PVC is pretty much an unrecyclable material.
100%.
Yeah, I mean
It's
it's
also
technically
toxic from the start to the end.
yeah. So PVC. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? I recently learned PVC was like a big no-no.
It is.
I had no idea. And I was just doing work in the yard with some PVC pipes. Now tell me all the things that are wrong.
That's one of the it's like that. I don't know. I don't want to say fun, but moving on. It's one of the most obvious pieces of plastic to avoid. That and Teflon. However, Teflon, which is
Kendra writing notes for all the things to get rid of when she gets home.
Teflon is the company name. I'm the plastic name is escaping me, but that plastic was created for a reason, and it is actually indestructible. And it's bad because it'll break up into minuscule pieces and just float in our environment till
the end of time.
Yes.
Essentially. Okay.
Which isn't great. And that's something like you have to prioritize your sustainability. Otherwise you'll get overwhelmed. So
Emily's really good about that. She brings me back down when I can get really overwhelmed on all of it. And she has this great way of bringing it.
Focus on what you can do. Like that's all you can do. It's okay to not do everything. And but PVC is interesting because there are so many alternatives. And it was also created for a reason. We needed a plastic that was that strong. And we use it for so much because of what it is. And it's great. And for, housing and everything, it's now for plumbing and sewer, and almost everything in a house actually has PVC in it because of its integrity. But it is so toxic from the manufacturing point to the decomposition point. So like if you have a PVC pipe and you're sawing it in half and there's like little white dust that comes off, that is not good for you to breathe in.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That.
but like it's not, it's to an extent, but it's just something that we don't need in our environment long term. So we know this now. So now we can start to trade it out for something better. And that the one that almost works all the time is HDPE plastic.
Okay.
And it's a high definition polyethylene piping usually. And
they can make piping out of that?
Yeah.
Because HDP isn't that what your grocery bags and like Ziploc bags are?
No idea.
Okay. It is. It is.
Maybe that's what they took.
Yeah.
And then made.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. It's like I had like our irrigation. Well, yeah, and then PEX piping is also fine. So like irrigation and small plumbing things can be done with PEX.
Yeah.
And then HDPE is fine for most other plumbing.
Yeah.
And again, like you have to look at the integrity of these plastics and make sure they're approved per city code and all of this stuff that goes around it. But
okay, so on that note, I know in this conversation in this room, we say, oh, we know this now. We know it's not good. Okay, well, I know as of 14 seconds ago that I shouldn't have been breathing in the PVC pipe I was cutting. So in that laughter and context, does everybody really know? Like, how do we have these conversations with companies and businesses that aren't connected with companies like you guys?
Just talk to them. Yeah, like that's mostly what I do all day is call manufacturers. And
so I can have all these manufacturers just call you now.
Right. And it's like impossible to have every consumer know this kind of stuff. And I think that's where the framework of this conversation, it's important that like specifiers, manufacturers, that we know and that we want to do something about it. You know,
it's just like and the more people talk about it, the more people will sort of click. And I don't know if you remember like I don't know if you guys heard more recently, like when the Barbie movie was coming out, I heard a lot where it was like, how many people chewed on their Barbies?
Oh my gosh.
They are made of PVC.
Oh.
So it's like soda.
I'm not
it's
dead
fine.
yet, guys.
Oh my
I'm
God.
good.
I
No, yeah, and like we
Barbie is made out of PVC pipe.
it's a really strong
PVC
plastic.
pipe.
Barbie is literally indestructible, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like it comes down to the more like, I don't want to say pop culture, but for
Yeah.
a lack of better term, that sense. And then I can't remember, a few years ago, in the news somewhere in the Midwest, a train tipped over and basically a black cloud went into the sky,
Mhm.
and that was PVC dust. So like that's what it looks like before it turns into a pipe. So it's
Ah,
toxic,
okay.
but then like if it was just clear that that's what we're working with, maybe
Yeah.
we should just make it more of a conversation to try to do something differently from here on out. Yeah.
And I think it goes, Josie, to what you're saying is not necessarily the consumer at my end, but where I'm buying these things from. If those companies and manufacturers, if they can understand, hey, this isn't good, and we're putting this in people's houses with children and pets and things like that, or letting Kendra cut up PVC in the backyard of the weekend. It starts with those companies more so than maybe just Joe Schmo at home, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Like you've heard of corporate social responsibility, probably, and that was kind of the report that is now being superseded. I think that's the right word, with ESG, which is environmental social governance reports. So yeah, I think there is a big responsibility on these manufacturers, even on the dealer side, on the architect side, and it's really exciting to see those industries really rising to that. I really do feel like the industry's changing.
Yes.
And it's fun to be on the forefront of that. And it definitely takes a lot of innovation, like Emily was saying with the PVC. Like these materials were chosen for a reason, because they're cost effective, because they're durable, blah, blah, blah. So it is a challenge to find materials that meet those criteria. But it's important to have environmental and like human health and safety be the top priority. And I think defining that as the top priority is really when innovation happens. So Goodman's represents Miller Knoll Furniture, Herman Miller and Knoll. And I was just reading this really great book about, they're just kind of geeking out about the history of Miller Knoll and their first PVC task chair, which was the Mira 2. And it was a huge deal. And pretty much the only reason they were able to create that is because they prioritized environmental concerns first. And that led to everyone having to put their heads together to find better solutions, because if the CEO and the CFO, because those conversations did trickle back to them, if they would have said, yeah, you're right, like we're on a downspin right now, we need to prioritize profit, like that innovation would never have came to fruition. So I think it's really about companies, I almost think, just being brave enough to declare that. I mean, brave enough, sensible enough, I don't know, like to really make that declaration.
Yeah. And there's that shift, like we said, with when these things were developed, right? The purpose was, we want this to last forever, right?
Yeah.
And carpets and all kinds of other material.
Yeah.
Yes, PVC isn't great, but there's other materials where those companies literally said, hey, we want to make this carpet
last
so
forever.
Yes, it's indestructible. We want it to last forever. And then over time, it's okay, now this mindset shift of, well, maybe it's not great if it lasts forever.
Like that would be so cool if carpet never went out of fashion.
Yeah.
Like if
or if I never spilled coffee, that would be really cool too.
I would still have orange carpet in my parents' house.
So if that was a thing, that like everybody for the rest of time was like, I love carpet. And then this wouldn't be in conversation. So, but then, and because things change and then we have to evolve with it. And you can't just like build a big square building and then hope that everybody forever wants a big square building.
Yeah, and you have to be, manufacturers are having to be like humble and be like, okay, we were actually wrong with that, or like similar to the just label. It's all, I feel like it's really that shift toward looking at our stuff, kind of declaring it, being transparent about it, and committing to doing better. And that's really like how simple I think sustainability can be. But it is hard to, I think, to look at those realities. So I think we have been like brainstorming on, like, we're both really passionate about bringing things down to like a palatable, more inspiring perspective. And I think that's where we'll see a lot of change, like even on the consumer level. I think like empowering people rather than kind of making it about fear, because then I just want to bury my head under the sand. Like, I don't know about anyone else, but
my gosh. In grad school, every sustainable anything started with like a fear tactic in the beginning.
No.
I took a nap after every single lecture. You were just because exhausted. It was so overwhelming. And like, nobody needs to be scared of it. It's not something that's scary. So yeah, Josie and I it's easier, especially like now that we know each other and we have the same passions and we can talk about this freely, knowing where we both stand. And it's from two different perspectives, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But it's much easier for us to figure out how to break it down and basically say it's okay that we weren't doing it. Okay. So all it is you have to recognize what's going on and accept the fact that like we're going to have to change in a big way moving forward. And like, that's okay. One step at a time.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal, but I mean, it will be.
But it kind of is. But like Josie said, kind of, okay, we have to bite it and say, yes, we did this, we built this, but now let's shift, let's grow. And then the conversations with the companies, right? And when you guys were talking about the Declare label, everything in that label, you have to talk to all of the other manufacturers that built all of the other things. So that influence, if Goodman's is saying, hey, we want to be sustainable. And then you realize maybe there's somebody that makes the cushion you use that's not sustainable. Then your influence towards them, right? And then saying, okay, well, maybe we're not going to use you anymore, or those conversations.
And luckily Miller Knoll had those conversations, and we're lucky enough to just work with Miller Knoll, who already had all those difficult conversations with the manufacturers. So, and like Emily was saying with the certifications and the labels, like it is, it's not a perfect system because it does take money to do that. So I think that, but at the same time, it's a celebration and it's an accomplishment. So it shows that there was work that went behind it. So it's really nice to be able to represent Miller Knoll. And we also represent DIRT, which is an interior modular construction system. So both of those are really sustainable at their core. So all Goodman's had to really do was be like, oh yes, we love what they're doing, and let's show you what it looks like on a dealership level, because we're not actually making the furniture, but we are selling it, and we are getting surplus furniture back from customers. So that's where the kind of circular economy model and then our own net zero carbon goal kind of came into play. And we're actually, it's kind of cool, we matched kind of by accident Miller Knoll's goals, which is to reduce their carbon footprint by 50% by 2030. And they're on the SBT database as well. And they'll be increasing their amount of recycled content per product. I think it's going to be like 50% or more recycled content in each product.
That's great.
And design for disassembly, which has been kind of a core for them since I think the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's like ensuring that a chair can be taken apart by regular people tools. You don't need a specialist in there to kind of take apart the chairs, and then it's marked with the recycling symbols, so you know how to recycle each part.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So when you're having these conversations, you're having them with your vendors and your partners, and then you're also having the conversations with the consumers, right? So they know that they can have their office of chairs for X amount of years and then get them back to you guys. How do you kind of continue those conversations? How do you update those conversations? Like, say I'm the person that buys the chairs for an office. How do I really get that communication from you, from Goodman's?
Well, and oftentimes, I mean, I think that conversation most of the time starts a lot earlier because we're seeing a lot of companies have sustainability goals of their own, like ART, for example, which is how Emily and I got connected, is they need certain furniture to fit the requirements to meet to meet their certification goals. So that's like how it would start. And then from there, responsible end of life, I think, is a part of the materiality requirements in the LBC.
Yes.
90%
of all waste is diverted from the landfill for
So not just what's in the building, like the infrastructure, but the stuff that's
everything else. Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah.
all of if it's a house, right? The bed, the chairs, all of that.
Countertops. Yeah.
It's really cool to have a certification look at that broad of a focus, because that really is, when we're talking about sustainability, you have to look at all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's cool to see that level of a certification.
Yeah. It's overwhelming, but it is nice. And when you have companies like Goodman's that care about the same things and have clients, or not clients.
Yeah,
clients,
partners.
Okay, that care about the same things. It makes everything so much easier, because we might not know the same things on the same levels, but we all have the same underlying kind of
priorities.
Desire. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
And that's why it's really refreshing to work like with ART, who have declared the environment to be a top priority, because like we were saying, there's innovation, there's trade-offs that have to be made when, based on your priorities. So it's nice to have that be a steadfast. And we see lots of other customers with that as their steadfast goal too, but that is like a challenge, as well as balancing cost and feasibility. Like a lot of the times we were talking about recycling furniture, it is a lot cheaper and quicker to just have a liquidator come in and take all of it and probably throw a lot of it away or sell some of it for their own profit. So it really is just about choice and priorities, which I am seeing more and more priorities shift toward the more sustainable lens.
Yeah. And then it helps you align, like you said, with the right partners. If you know that somebody's, a company's top priority is the environment and sustainability, then that helps make the decision. If you have two vendors you have to choose, well, you're going to pick the one who's focused on the same goals and the same values as you. And I'm assuming that's how you mentioned how you guys both connected. Who connected with who? Like, did you connect through Goodman's and Art?
Yeah.
Yes.
So between Goodman's and ART, we had a meeting about Sonoran Studio, which is the name of our new office, the LBC building, for all of our furniture and interior furniture. So, but we just kind of ran with it.
Yeah. From there. We're like, okay, we're best friends now, by the way.
we had one meeting, and then after, Josie and I were like, hey, let's get coffee and talk.
So we've actually started studying for the WELL accredited professional exam together too. So there's all these furniture certifications, building certifications, and then the specifiers, architects, designers all have accreditations personally as well, meaning that you are well versed in the requirements of a given certification, so you can help advise companies and individuals on how to reach that. So the amount of furniture that needs to have a declare label in order to get a Living Building Challenge stamp. So the main three building certifications are LBC, LEED, which we kind of touched on, and then WELL, which feels kind of new, or maybe it's just gaining a lot of popularity. And I think there's probably more that I missed.
Those are those are like the three basics in the US.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And then WELL, I think it's just because either we are now in the world of it, so we know it more, or it's becoming, I'm seeing more WELL buildings now than I ever have. So it might just be kind of gaining its ground.
Totally. So
I've never heard of it.
Oh, wow.
So like you said, it might be because
it's going to be for you now, though.
Now I'm going to see it everywhere because we're having this conversation.
It's really, you'll never see it. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about it?
Well, I was just drawn. I was going to say Kendra's going to love it now if she sees them, because it's like that whole PVC conversation when you're like, oh my gosh, I did not know like this So when you're in a well building, you can rest assured that all that stuff has been taken into account. Like the main focus is human health and wellness.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is a certification not about the building, but about how people interact with the building.
So some about the building, but it's more so about
like
building
space and noise
considerations that make the best possible occupant experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
From like a safety perspective, so like the materiality and like moisture management, like checking the AC cooling coils for excess moisture, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's from that perspective, which was not my favorite part to study for, I'll be honest. But then there's really exciting stuff that I think like we both relate to a lot being at the progressive companies that we're at, that has to do with how much family leave you give your employees, like your mental health programs, the availability of fruits and vegetables, a community garden, like lots of aspects like that, sound barriers and sound transmission. And it's all of that is to improve the occupant experience, which again, I can kind of swirl around and get a little overwhelmed with all that because I'm like, oh, I see a flickering light now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what that's doing to my,
but also it's like, it's nice because it also promotes kind of the core human sense of happiness.
Yeah.
So like what you scientifically, or what would scientifically create happiness.
Yeah.
So windows basically, and natural sunlight, and like the community gardens, just the exposure to the outdoors, and
and connecting with your surrounding community, which super important.
Even
as you know.
So
I love it. And is this another acronym?
It's not actually.
Or is it just WELL?
It's just well.
Or is it WEL? Is there an
just
acronym involved?
It's just well.
Okay.
Yeah. It is all capitalized, but it's not.
I need to look this
that
up
wasn't
now,
on the
actually.
study materials. So I think no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a lot of acronyms written down. That is fascinating to me that it's beyond just the building itself.
Yeah.
Josie knows I am very big in the culture space with company culture, and that is my area that I geek out. So now my head is already like, oh my gosh, how fascinating that now we've taken it an entirely different level, not just mental health and taking care of people as people. And now, right, the building side of it, or like you were talking about, family leave involved too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go
active
down.
furnishings, like opportunities for movement. And it really is like the goal of it is to create a culture of health, like to change, the human experience just in general.
Yeah. Well, we're in an office building.
Yeah, we spend 90% of our time indoors, by the way.
Yeah. So, and especially here in the summer, it's not like we're opening windows. So
we can't really go for a midday walk.
No. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like sometimes just sitting in like a real dark room would be nice in the middle of July. But like, but it creates spaces where you don't even have to think about like what might make you feel better. It's just a nice place to be that takes into consideration all the things that humans need.
Totally. Where the healthiest choice is the easiest choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's something like a lot of designers or just professionals in the built environment in general, like understand our responsibility, and we get excited about it to shape human experiences for the better through design. Because like we were saying about the consumer kind of knowledge, like it's not necessarily, it's becoming more and more the consumer's responsibility to understand all this, unfortunately, but it hasn't always been that way. And I don't think it should be. Like, that's why we have professionals in this space who know what's best.
This is why we have the two of you talking to us today. And I have a list of notes and things I need to research more on. Yeah. As we start to get a little closer to winding down, I only say that because we've almost been in here an hour, which is crazy how fast these conversations go. For those listeners, so we have a very diverse, group of folks that listen to all of these podcasts. A lot of them are the CEOs, the business leaders that are able to start to make those changes. And some of them are maybe middle managers listening. how do you communicate? How do you kind of propose and share for all of these people when they're listening to the two of you right now and they're writing down all of these acronyms that I'm writing down and they're like, oh my gosh, I have PVC and Emily says it's bad. Where is kind of a starting point for people, and where, if it's like my mom, she's wish recycling,
Yeah.
right? What are your thoughts, your suggestions, your kind of go forth message for our listeners that kind of spread across the gamut?
I would love to say just like pick your priority.
Okay.
And like an anecdote that I use a lot, one of my professors said, I asked him like which was better, paper bags or plastic bags, and he's like, well, it depends. Do you care about energy or do you care about waste? Because a paper bag is recyclable, but it takes about 10 times more energy to create than a plastic bag. So
Wow.
yeah, so there's no right or wrong answer here.
Yeah.
It's pick your priorities. If you and I do want to shout out one company that we both actually know and work with. So if you hate throwing away food waste, a good friend of mine who Goodman's uses owns a company called Recycled City.
Okay.
And what he does is provide bins to have you throw all your compost in a bin. Then his company comes and picks it up. It gets turned into compost in a farm in Phoenix. And then it can be turned in, you can
buy vegetables from it.
Yeah, vegetables or compost
Truly
if
circular.
you're planting. And it's truly circular. But so if it's a real simple way to just take organics out of your garbage and out of the landfill. So if you're huge on how much you throw away, that's a great simple solution.
And it's a beautiful solution for like someone like me or somebody that lives in maybe an apartment and having a compost bin maybe isn't the most realistic solution, because then you have a compost bin and then I'm always like, well, what do I do? Like I can't keep a plant alive to save my life or the plant's life. So I'm like, okay, what next? So that's a beautiful
I'm
solution.
someone who like almost shamefully doesn't eat leftovers, but I always take them home. So now I feel much better about it because they're not going in the garbage. Yeah. But then, again, it just comes down to like, what do you care about?
Yeah.
And how do you just think of an easy, simple way to start? I
Beautiful.
guess. Yeah.
Starting somewhere.
Yeah. I would echo that for sure. I think, like when I would almost use the analogy when you have a million things to do on a Saturday, but you just have to like start with one, like, it's exactly that. And also I guess to just I hope that people feel inspired, because there are really big, shifts happening in the industry within the built environment and lots of other industries too. So there are lots of people who care about this, who are dedicating time and resources to this, and that the answer is innovation, which to me is really exciting, that it's not a trade-off, that we can like really have it all. And as everyone probably knows, as humans, we really want to have it all. And I think that there's definitely still a way to do that and do it so that our kids can have it all too.
Yeah.
And their kids.
Yeah.
And the innovation piece, I'm glad you said that, because yes, we can get very caught up in, oh my gosh, all of these things. I have to recycle everything and start somewhere. But the innovation piece, we're learning how to recycle things in really cool, unique ways that we didn't even realize before. We were talking right before we came on the air, even the glass that Emily has is from a company called Refresh Glass. So they turn wine bottles into cups. Like, how rad, So the innovation piece is a beautiful piece of all of this. So Josie, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Before we go, when people are looking to connect with you and they have questions on ESG, AGPE, ART, ABCD, HPD, ILFI, I have a lot of them, when people are listening and they are so excited to connect with both of you, how can they do so? Emily, how can they find you?
I have my email on me all the time.
Okay.
So my company email at ART is just Kingman, Kingman, my first initial and last name, at ART-TEAM, like go team.
Love it.
Yeah, I would probably say the same for me. You can go to Goodman's websites to find me on LinkedIn, Goodman's social media, and an email is, probably the quickest way to reach me. And it's my first initial and last name too at goodmans.com.
I am so thankful
Yeah,
for the
this
both
is
of
fun.
you. I'm very thankful also that it worked out for me to
I
get
know.
to host this. I promise I didn't finagle anything to make it so I could be in this conversation. Thank you to both of you. You're making some amazing things happen, and you're helping the community to learn how to do this as well. So thank you for being here. And for everybody else that's listening, some media leans left, some leans right, and we lean business.
Cool.